Hi guys, today we're going to talk about factoring. So factoring is like we're dividing. So last week we learned how to multiply polynomials. Today we're kind of like dividing polynomials. But we need to find what we're going to divide by. So today we're going to cover factoring by distributive property and we're going to factor by GCF. Do you guys know what that means? Greatest common factor. So what we're going to do is, for example, 3x to the 5th power minus 12x to the 2nd power. We're going to factor out greatest common factor. So if you look at these two, I like to use the ladder method. So when I factor, I look at 3 and 12. And we need to find the factor that is the greatest. What is the greatest number that goes into 3 and 12? 3. Is that right? Okay. Now, how about x to the 5th power and x to the 2nd power? So x to the 5th power is made up of x times x times x times x times x, correct? And x to the 2nd power is made up of x times x. So what do they have in common? They both have x and then x. So we can say x squared is the greatest common factor. So, monomial greatest common factor is 3x to the 2nd power. So once you pull out the greatest common factor, what you do is you're just dividing from the binomial. So what is 3x to the 5th power divided by 3x to the 2nd power? When you divide, what do? We divide the coefficient, we subtract the exponents. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. X to the 5th divided by x to the 2nd is x to the 3rd power. Now, minus. What's 12 divided by 3? Which is 4. What's x squared divided by x squared? Which is 1. Do I need to write that? No. So, my answer will be 3x squared times x cubed minus 4. This is the factors of x to the 5th power, 3x to the 5th power minus 12x to the 2nd power. Does that make sense to you? Now, how do I check it? You don't have to do this every time, but this is one way to check it. If you want to check it, you can actually distribute and see if you get this binomial. So, what's 3x squared times x to the 3rd power? 3x to the 5th power. And what is 3x squared times minus negative 4? Which is 12x to the 2nd power. Do you see? Then we go back to the original. So that's how you check it. Alright, let's practice another one. So let's factor out of GCF between 4x squared and then 36. What do you see? Common factor of 4 and 36 is? What number goes into 4 and 36? It's the greatest number? 4. Correct? Now, between x squared, there's no x. So can we factor out of x here? This has x times x. There's no x. So x is not a common factor. Alright? So once you find the greatest common factor, all you do is you just divide. 4x squared divided by 4 is x squared plus 36 divided by 4 is 9. Can we factor any more? No. That means my answer will be 4. Bring down this monomial factor with x squared plus 9 in parentheses. How easy is that? Alright, let's try another one. How about 25a to the 2nd power plus 15a? Now we're going to factor out of GCF. We're going to use the ladder method. What's a common factor between 25 and 15? What's the greatest one? Which is 5. Alright? Now, how about a squared and then a? A squared is made up of a times a. A is made up of just a. So what do they have in common? Correct. A. All right. So once you find the monomial common factor, all you do is you just divide it from this polynomial. 25a squared divided by 5a is 5a, correct? Plus 15a divided by 5a is 3. I'm done. All I need to do is I just need to put parentheses around this binomial factor and bring down this monomial factor. Okay? So I'm done. Now, do you see the pattern here? So if you look at the variable terms, if you look at x to the 5th power and then x to the 2nd power, what was the common factor? One with lower exponents, x to the 2nd power. Between a squared and a, what was the common factor? A was the common factor, which was the lower exponent. Does everyone see the pattern? Okay. Now, I want everyone to pause the video and try D and E by yourself. Once you're done. Alright, so if you look at D and E, okay, you should check your answer. I want you to notice one thing about E right here. When you divide by 3x to the 3rd power as a common factor, you divide 3x cubed divided by 3x cubed, then you have 1 as a factor. So make sure you put that 1. Sometimes people tend to do like 3x cubed divided by 3x cubed is nothing, but you gotta bring down that 1. Alright? So now let's try F. Okay? So between 28 and 56, you can think of the common factor. You can think of 2, but 2 is not the greatest common factor. You might say 4, but 4 is not the greatest common factor. You might say 7. 7 is a common factor, but that is not the greatest common factor. If you look at 28 and 56, the greatest common factor is 28. Okay? Now, a squared and then a. Let's take a look at one at a time. When we have more than one variable, we're going to look at each variable at a time. So a squared and a. What's a common factor? A. Between B and B, what's the common factor? B. How about between C squared and there's no C? Do we factor out of C here? No, because the first term does not have C, you can't really factor that out. So once you've pulled out the greatest common monomial factor, all you need to do is you just need to divide. 28a squared b divided by 28ab is, 28 divided by 28 is 1. A squared divided by a is a. We're subtracting the exponents. B divided by b is nothing. Okay, plus 56 divided by 28 is 2. A divided by a is nothing. B divided by b is nothing. And then c squared. Now, do you see why it was so important for you to understand the law of exponents? Because we're going to be using it throughout this unit and next unit. Okay? So now I want everyone to pause the video and try the rest of the problems. Okay? G and H. Go ahead. Pause the video. Okay? So the answer for H is 4x times 5x minus 6y. Correct? Now, I purposefully made a mistake on G. I pull out 4y squared as a common factor, greatest common factor. But how do I know this is not the greatest common factor? The way to check it is if you look at this trinomial factor, you see 4, 6, and 10. Can we divide 4, 6, and 10 by any other numbers? What's the number that I can divide by? 2. So I'm going to pull out 2 one more time. Okay, so 4 divided by 2 is 2x. 6z divided by 2 is 3z. And then plus 5. Okay, now there's no more factors, no more common factors. So we're done. Okay, so if you made a mistake of not pulling out the greatest common factor, the way that you can check it is you look at the polynomial that you have factored out and see if there is any more common factor. If you do, you can actually factor it out. Okay? Once you're done with that, what do I need to do? What do I do with the factors when you want to put them back? You multiply them. So 4 times 2 is 8y to the second power. Okay? We'll do more practice in class, but it is really, really important to understand how to factor out of greatest common factor. All right? So I'll see you in class. Bye.